What's up, Mecha fans, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going back to Mobile Fighter G Gundam, which I reviewed at the end of 2024, and we're going to be doing my top 10 characters from that series. I decided not to do a character tier list because there's really not enough characters here where I can confidently talk about them at length, so I figured I might as well just do a top 10 and talk about some of my favourite characters from this series. Before I dive into the list though, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, head on down to the comments section below and let me know your favourite characters from Mobile Fighter G Gundam. And without further ado, let's dive into the list. Coming in at number 10, we have Andrew Graham. Now, this is the only, side character, if you will, on this list. And when I say side characters, I'm talking about, the ones that show up for, couple of fights, maybe. So they kind of show up in the first half, and then they come back for the final round of the Gundam fight. And I think in terms of that, Andrew Graham definitely the best of those. I think he's definitely got the most emotional backstory. He's also got a substantial character arc where, he hates Argo, who we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And then he kind of goes from hating him to slightly teaming up with him within the back half of the series. And I just think the whole backstory there is really interesting. The dynamic and relationship he has with Argo is very fascinating. And like I said, in terms of the real side characters, if you will, of this series, he is definitely the standout. At number 9, we have George Desan. Now, he's my least favourite of the Shuffle Alliance, but that certainly doesn't make him a bad character. I do like that chivalrous and honourable personality that he has going for him, and also I think he bounces off a lot of the other characters well. What I think G Gundam does very well, at least in terms of the Shuffle Alliance especially, is that every single one of those characters has a very different personality, and it makes kind of the banter that you get between them, the character interactions, just interesting, because it allows for really good writing in terms of, like I said, character interactions, dialogue, all that kind of stuff. And especially when it comes to his standalone episode that you have towards the end of the series, I think that's really good, where he essentially breaks away from France to do his own thing that he wants to do. And it really shows an interesting and different side to that character. So whilst he is my least favourite of the Shuffle Alliance, he's not a bad character. He's also got a really cool mobile suit, which I guess technically has the first sign of the bits that you have within Witch from Mercury. At number 8 is saici. Now, bouncy characters, much like what Sai is, are always a fun addition to a series, and like I said with George, great in terms of personality and bouncing off all of the other characters. And he's just a very lovable presence to have within this series. But also, I think what elevates him as a character is that they really show a mature side to him. There's moments in this series where he has one of the more mature outlooks. He can kind of bring the group together in some ways with that maturity, even though he is probably, in terms of age, but also in terms of personality, the most immature character within the Shuffle Alliance. But they kind of add that balance of immaturity and maturity, and it just makes him a very well-rounded character in terms of personality. And when it comes to motivations for being in the Gundam fight, I think he definitely has one of the more compelling ones, wanting to, reset up the temple, and there's reasoning behind that. When you find out why he's doing it, ultimately, I guess when he finds out why he's doing it, because he doesn't really know himself, but when you kind of get to that in the back half of the series, it adds that layer of emotion and really makes you compelled by the character, makes you invested in what he's trying to do. At number 7, we have Rain Mikamura. Now, I think they do a lot with this character to flesh her out and make her, feel like her own character. But I guess the problem that I have with her is that they don't do enough of that in this series, because there are definitely times where she does slot into the role of love interest, where a lot of her development and a lot of her struggles in the series are surrounding her relationship with Domon. There's a lot of times where she can't stand alone as her own character, separate from Domon, and I think the actual love, the relationship between those two characters is really good. I think it's one of the better Gundam romances, especially when it comes to main romances. But again, there's a lot of times where she could have been truly her own standalone character, but she's just tied down by that love subplot, and unfortunately that does knock her down a few notches on this list. At number 6, we have Allenby Beardsley. Her energy and personality make her very easy to love, and I think the fact that she's not introduced until halfway through the series, that is impressive in its own right. The fact that she's this high on the list and she has half the amount of time in the series as pretty much every other character here, aside from Andrew of course, I think is pretty impressive. Like, she is a great character, she's got such a great presence, and she's also one of the more iconic characters, I think, from G Gundam. Her Gundam itself is one of the more iconic ones in G Gundam, the Nobel Gundam. Fantastic design and just really unique and inspired. But I think Allenby as a character, very lovable, very easy to root for, and also she's a bit of a wild card in places as well, which again, that always makes her very, very fun and very enjoyable to watch on screen. Moving into the top 5, we have Chibodee Crocket. Now, he fully taps into that, like, American persona. He's really a larger-than-life character in terms of personality, but because they go so far with that and, like, they really play into it, I think it works. They know what they're trying to do, and they don't try to, like, beat around the bush with it. It really does work, and like I said, he's one of those larger-than-life personalities, and again, that makes him really enjoyable to watch on screen, but also I think his motivation's really good as well. Like, it's selfish, but selfless at the same time, where he wants to create the American dream, but he's doing it for the people. He's very much a man of the people, and I think those kind of characters, especially when they're fully playing into, like, the American dream and that, I think it really works, and I think this is one of those cases where they do it right. He's also got, in my opinion, one of the best backstories in the show, and that's mainly because it's very relatable to me, because I also have a fear of clowns. At number 4, we have Kyoji, Kasshu / Schwarz Brooder. And if it wasn't for like the last 7 or 8 episodes, maybe 7 or 6 episodes, I can't remember exactly, then this character wouldn't have been as high. But because of the reveal, because of the emotion surrounding the character death, which, you know, I guess spoilers for G Gundam here, which should be pretty self-explanatory. I feel like that's the reason why he is so much higher, because it really hits within those last few episodes, and they do a really good job of revealing his backstory, developing it, and I think the whole backstory of like how he became Schwarz and the whole Devil Gundam stuff is very unique and unexpected. Now, speaking of unexpected, the actual reveal that Kyoji is Schwarz is not unexpected, because, you know, when you look at like the first half of the series and kind of the end of that first half, you can tell who Schwarz is just from the reactions of characters. It is so obvious. You also look at like the ripped mask and that, it's obviously Kyoji, like you can tell that. But I think when you actually get the inevitable reveal, it's not any less effective. Like, it really does work because there's a lot more intricate details to the backstory. I don't think you could easily predict what the backstory of why Schwarz is, but you could have predicted that Kyoji was Schwarz, if that makes sense. So I think the way that everything plays out definitely elevates the fact that it's predictable and you could kind of tell right off the bat who was who. And for me, how emotionally compelling a scenario or character is definitely plays into how much I think they are good as a character. And because Kyoji's death, in my opinion, is probably the most emotional moment of the entire series, that's why he is as high as he is on the list. Moving into our top 3, we have Argo Gulskii. Now, the very image of this guy in handcuffs evokes a feeling of sadness. You know, his presence is both somber and intense, and you just feel for this guy, just looking at him. You know, he's just a guy that's in handcuffs, and yeah, like, upon first inspection, you kind of expect him to be a certain way. But they really play around with that, and he's not the kind of person you expect him to be. He's not a super intense guy. He's not, you know, rough and gruff and all this kind of stuff. He is a really kind-hearted person. Emotionally speaking, he's soft in many ways. He has like a caring, selfless presence to him, and I think that's what makes the character so compelling. Out of the Shuffle Alliance, he is my favorite, like in terms of the Shuffle Alliance, aside from Domon. I think he's a fantastic character that's, like I said, he's selfless, he's got a really good backstory, and he's one of those characters where it's like, don't judge a book by its cover. You look at this guy, immediately you think he is a certain type of person, but he is absolutely not that. And I think just the fact that from looking at him, without him saying really much, you can tell so much about the character. And I think that's an element of great character design, but it's also an element of great writing in terms of how they present the character on screen. Our runner-up in second place is Domon Kasshu. Considering he is the main character, obviously he has the most substantial character development. He is very much a shonen protagonist, you know, so if you don't like that, you're probably not going to like Domon as a character. And as much as I think shonen protagonists can definitely tap into a little bit of the generic side of protagonists sometimes, where, you know, essentially their development is dedicated to powering up and all this kind of stuff. And they really do that with Domon, but I feel like it works here because it's different for Mecha especially, but also very different for Gundam. Like, he is a protagonist that very much stands apart and doesn't feel like a redone version of someone else. As much as I love someone like Kira Yamato, he's very much an Amuro Ray type character. But Domon is not really comparable to any other Gundam protagonist. Like, he's very much on his own, stands alone. He's very much a different character, and like I said, he's definitely plays into that whole shonen protagonist persona of the development being powering up, getting better at fighting, improving his, physical prowess and all this kind of stuff, which in turn improves him like as a person and as a character. That is the kind of template of a shonen protagonist, and I think it's done pretty well here. But also the fact that it just feels unique in terms of the Gundam franchise definitely helps actually set it apart. He's also one of the few Gundam protagonists whose fighting prowess actually manages to match his skills as a pilot. You look at, most of the Gundam protagonists, for example, like Amuro Ray, he's great at piloting, but you put him in an actual fight, he's going to get his ass kicked. Same with Kira, as we saw in Gundam Seed Freedom. He is certainly not a fighter in person, he's just very good at piloting mobile suits. But Domon kind of sits in between that, where he's great piloting the God Gundam and the Shining Gundam, but also you put him in a physical fight, he's gonna probably win. Like, he's a really good fighter, he's a really good mobile suit pilot, so it makes him just a competent character in terms of action sequences. But coming in first place is Master Asia, and what makes him such a standout character within this series is that he represents a conflicting presentation of good and evil. His betrayal shortly after he's introduced puts him in the position of being an antagonist, but you can tell that his motivations aren't truly evil, and he holds a little ill will towards Domon and the other characters. He's one of those antagonists who has strong beliefs, but he's also willing to admit when he's wrong, which I think makes him incredibly human, really grounds him in reality, which is especially effective in a series that is far from grounded in reality. Master Asia is far more nuanced than I think a lot of people give him credit for, but also every time he's on screen, he brings that presence. He, captures your attention every time he speaks, every time he's there. He always steals the spotlight, and that is just a great sign of a great character. That commanding presence is definitely helped by a fantastic voice performance, which I think all of this combined truly does put him in that worthy space of #1 when it comes to characters within Mobile Fighter G Gundam. There we have it though, those were my top 10 characters in Mobile Fighter G Gundam. Before I get out of here, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of Mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. And like I did say earlier, head on down to the comments section below. Let me know your favourite characters or favourite character within G Gundam, and stay tuned because I will have a mobile suit tier list because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the mobile suits in G Gundam. Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today, and I'll see you guys next time.